reference this presentation, which I hope will be presented or linked to the agenda, and we as board members, as community members, as staff, need to share that information out to the public. So when someone says, you're doing DEI in your school, well, this is what we mean. This is what Somerset is doing. We don't have hiring practices. We don't have goals of that businesses have. We are doing something different here, and I really want to focus on that. Neola has given given feedback that our policies are good with how they are based on the executive order and the current Dear Colleague letter, that we don't have to do anything to our policies right now. We don't do anything different than we're doing here. There's a current injunction about these executive orders anyway through the federal court.
Not for this executive order.
That's correct.
For other executive orders, but not this current indoctrination.
Okay. Well, and in those executive orders, a lot of the language is that we don't discriminate based on race or sex. We don't do that here. Nothing in this strategic plan says we do that here. And I guess the last thing I kind of want to end with is we have a ton of staff who have reached out, who have showed up, have given information, are around the table, and are asking us that this is important in our school. This is very important to them. This is important to what they do. And I just ask myself and ask everyone around here, why do we continue to question the licensed, the people who have gone for the training, over people who are doing research and telling people how to think and what they're supposed to do because they've researched? I'm sorry, but I'm not going to trust somebody to do welding at my job who has only done research on how to weld and hasn't done it once in their life. A pilot to fly my plane. I'm not going to do that for somebody who's only researched it. They're not flying my family. I'm asking the people who are licensed and who are doing this day in and day out and living it. And that's what I think we heard tonight. So I guess with that, and the point I want to make, and then I'll stop, is that if there are questions, if there are issues, 100% you need to bring it up to the teacher, the administrator, so that if there are questions or issues with this, I'm full in support of you bringing it up to them. Yeah, I don't want this to be misconstrued that you can't question these people. For sure, bring it up. Ask for clarification. I do. Other board members do. Other people in the community should feel that they can ask the question and get the clarity and information. So please keep doing that. But again, I don't think we need to do anything different than what we're doing right here.
I'm just wondering if all the educators are realizing how much these words have been hijacked in the last 15, 10 years. Like, it's not, it is now representing something completely different to people. Are we aware of that? I don't know where things went off the rails, but it means something different to the majority of people. I think it means something different to the majority of Somerset residents, national. I'm not comfortable keeping these words with an executive order in place. We can go back to what Neola has said, but I saw, as far as like Title IX went, there were lawyers across the state telling schools they would lose their insurance if they did not implement Title IX. And here we are saying, this executive order doesn't matter. I'm not comfortable with that.
So there's several reasons to eliminate DEI. We've got the executive order that happened back in January 20th. Here we are almost 2 months later, and we're still talking to it like it's legitimate. The voters spoke loud and clear. Over 60% of the district voters voted against DEI. Yet here we're justifying it like it's okay, failing to realize that as an elected board, we answer to the district voters. That's what we answer to. And another thing is, this does not help us with our metrics. It doesn't help us being competitive. Our schools have to be competitive more now than ever, and it just seems like we're forgetting to do that, or we're living in a bubble where it doesn't matter. So having these words and embracing DEI in a strategic plan, which is actually very goal-oriented. I've heard from our elementary principal tonight that we're working towards the strategic plan execution. I heard from our middle school principal the same thing. I heard from our director of curriculum last month how we're trying to meet our goals when it comes to SEL as well. So it doesn't make any sense. The voters have spoken. We need to eliminate.
I have one more thing to mention. Does anybody remember the executive order that was on January 20th, 2021, that Biden called for advancing racial equity? And he spoke directly to systemic racism and systemic barriers, and this called for the implementation of DEI across all institutions, public institutions in America. So that makes me think that this could be baked into curriculum. In fact, one of the three main publishers in the United States, one which we use, McGraw-Hill, I was just on their website the other day, and their mission statement says, "We foster a culture of belonging and we work with partners who share our commitment to equity, inclusion, and diversity in all forms." That's still not defined for me, what that means to them, and I would need to go through the curriculum, do a DEI audit of what that means before I am comfortable with anything. I think we need to do that.
Honestly, I think the people of the community are smart enough to separate the negative stigma from DEI at the national level. We will say it has had a very negative at the national level. As these three words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as three separate words and not a program or anything like that, which we do not have any specific DEI programs in the school, are good things. There's nothing wrong with diversity, equity of opportunity, inclusion, nothing's wrong there. I believe that the people in this community are smart enough to make that separation, that there are negative DEI policies statewide. As somebody who works for the state of Minnesota, I have seen those policies. And there's negative DEI policies nationwide. That does not exist in Somerset. That does not exist here. And as we've been showing through our slideshow, everything that we've been told, it does not exist here. So we need to separate the negative stigma and look at those three words as good things within the community. It's good to be diverse. It's good to provide equitable opportunity and inclusion. There's nothing wrong with that either. So I think we just need to trust that the people in town are smart enough to realize that there is a big difference between what's being preached and sold and at the national level compared to what is happening in the district, which I think, being equitable, being diverse is very good, especially as the differences I've seen as somebody who went here in the 90s, it was not much of those things. And it's good that it's been pushed and that kids are learning to where when they leave a community like ours, they're able to get into a different environment and thrive.
Matt?
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that there is a difference, just like Ryan just said, between the national kind of rhetoric around this statement and what's actually taking place. I appreciate everything that was presented tonight. I had questions 2 weeks ago. Those questions were answered. My concerns revolved around programming. What's changed? What money do we take in? What are we doing different as a result of that? And it was very obvious, based on what was presented, that we didn't change our practices. I look at this as what is the programming and curriculum. Now, we could go down the rabbit hole with curriculum and publishers, but we have to remember this is public education. I may completely disagree with DEI and the way it's presented at the national level, but I put myself at this table in this community with an open mind. And as an individual, it's willing to look at what are we actually doing, what is all of this staff doing every single day to help our kids, and is this statement of DEI impacting that? And what I saw tonight was that, no, it's not. That I think that there is a difference between what we're seeing at the national level and what we're seeing here in Somerset.
So,
Hold on, I just want to get everybody give a chance to speak. Ian, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I was gonna try and tie a bow on this. It's gonna be tough though, so bear with me. So everybody's saying DEI at the national level. You're talking about specifically liberal political agenda. It exists. That's not what I'm seeing in our plan, but they're just words. We could change the words. It would mean basically the same thing we are doing now, and it wouldn't bother me a whole lot. I don't know if other people would bother. But it's not going to change anything. It's kind of like removing a policy about masking, giving our district administrator authority to make the decision. So now there's no policy, so it's at the discretion of our district administrator. It's not accomplishing anything. If there's, people keep asking what it is you have an issue with, specifically, if you can point to it, we can deal with it. Is there something that you saw in this presentation tonight that you have an issue with? That's anybody.
yeah, it's baked into everything.
What is baked in?
Hey, you're getting a little excited.
I'm just asking, what is baked in?
So, Department of Education has been pushing this on our schools. Okay?
Pushing what? Please, I'm
DEI.
really looking, what in DEI, Steve? I keep asking for specific examples within the Somerset school walls, who I am living in 2 different buildings, and I just am not seeing it. I am involved in everything. I'm micromanaging to the core, and I am not seeing it.
All right, so if that's the case, and if it's all harmless, then why do we need the words, why do we need 1.4? If it's all, it doesn't exist, then why do we need it? And why do we need 1.4?
Then why do we need to remove it
I'm
if
just-
we're not going to change anything?
Obviously, for the reasons that we have an executive order.
That's a little disingenuous because everybody that's saying executive order right now, 6 months ago was telling us we don't need to do what the federal government tells us to do. Same goes the other way. So people pushing that we don't need to do what the executive order says, the same people tell us we had to do it.
Lori, you haven't said anything yet. Do you have anything else?
Everything we do in Somerset schools concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social emotional learning is for the benefit of our children. It's to help them learn. It's to help them be good people, to have empathy for their classmates, to help them grow into adults who contribute to society. And everything that I've read and seen about these executive orders have nothing to do with what we are doing in a public K through 12 school. Can you please show me anything in any of these executive orders that has to do with a public K through 12 school? Because I don't see it. And everything that we've had in our strategic plans since 1996, and Steve, I've been here for every single one of them, and I've been on every single one of those committees. There's nothing in any of them that I would change or that I would quit doing. It's important for our kids.
So what you're saying is the language in the prior strategic plans is exactly like this.
I'm saying it's very similar, and the outcomes are basically the same. That we're teaching children to have empathy, to understand their emotions, to be able to talk through things instead of hitting. I mean, that's pretty basic, but that at the elementary level and even at some of the middle school and high school levels are what we're teaching.
So if it's all there anyway, and it's always been, why do we need these exact words in the order that they are?
Do you want to call it equity, inclusion,
I
and
don't want to call
diversity
anything
instead of
equity.
that?
I don't want to call anything equity, because I didn't see equity in prior strategic plans.
All right, so just hold on. What I'm gonna say is, so everyone has had their chance to speak. We have a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for a vote. I think we could talk about this all night long. I think we just call for a vote and then we'll move on, we'll move from there.
So can you repeat the motion?
Alicia, do you have it?
The motion is to leave the strategic plan verbiage as is.
Okay, and Lori did a second, so I'll start with the voting. I'll say yes. Danny?
No.
Matt? Yes. Steve?
No.
Ryan?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-2. We'll leave things as they are. Thank you, everybody, for that discussion. Shannon for pulling together everything, and that will be linked to the agenda.
Yep.
So again, I stress, if people have questions or comments, that is where we go and send them to get their information. All right, next item on the agenda is